Hey, this is Matt Urtz, the Madison County historian. We are still working to document the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and today we are talking to the Assemblyman for the 121st District, John Salka. John also served for about 30 years as a respiratory therapist at Community Memorial Hospital in Hamilton. So, John, you get to come from both perspectives. Thank you for joining us. We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you, Matt. It's an honor to be here.
So, you retired in 2017, but you still serve on the Committee for the Aging, Committee for Health as part of your role as Assemblyman. Talk a little bit about when COVID first appeared on your radar in that role and what you guys started to work with.
Well, of course, we were following the media very closely, and as legislators, we're responsible for a number of concerns of the people of our district, and we saw this one as potentially being a big one, which obviously it was, and we all know it's changed everybody's lives forever. And on the legislative level, we wanted to make sure that these precautions, if you will, were going to be taken and that people were going to be well protected. We did vote for a bill that funded coronavirus fight, if you will, for $40 million. Now, of course, that money is dwarfed by what it's actually costing in business loss and protecting the people of the district. But back in February, we knew something was up. And I think that's when a lot of people started to think that this is something that we probably ought to keep a real close eye on.
So you were, and I failed to reference this, you were also the town of Brookfield supervisor for a number of years.
11 years.
Yeah. So Madison County, we talked to Mark last week. Madison County went part-time with the governor's order March 9th-ish. And then we closed March 20th. Talk a little bit about, the communication that goes on between Assemblyman, between the governor, between all you folks, because this is all going on, and you really initially might have been able to meet a little, but very quickly nobody could meet in person. So is this all being done via email or what we're doing right now, like Skype and Zoom? And
yeah, that was probably one of the biggest effects, was that now the state legislature could not meet, and it couldn't probably have happened at a worse time because budget was supposed to be passed, which it was passed on time. I wasn't very happy with the results, but we did pass the budget. And not being able to meet face-to-face with my fellow legislators, both Republicans and Democrats, has really slowed down a lot of the processes that we depend on in order to get work done. We are back resuming session from time to time virtually, and it's just not the same. As we mill around on the floor of the Assembly and we get talking about bills that we're supporting, or we want to get some a little side debates going, maybe in the coffee room or in the corner of the chambers, and that tended to be something that was very productive. And we just simply weren't able to do that. If, in fact, I want to drum up support for a bill that I want to sponsor or that we've written, a lot of times what I would do is get to those people face-to-face, talk to them about the implications of the bill, how it can help their communities, how it can help their districts. And that wasn't there. Now it's got to be done by text and email and phone calls, and all those are very effective ways of communicating. There's nothing that matches that face-to-face, give you a handshake as an agreement type of lobbying. And I think that's really kind of inhibited the process of us being able to do what we should be doing for a lot of the people we represent.
Okay. Talk a little bit about, you, as I said, you serve on the committees for the aging, committees of health. Talk a little bit about what you guys went through as you looked through bills, because lots of stuff has happened. There have been executive orders, but there's actually been legislation passed too in trying to help and combat the coronavirus. So talk about how that comes into play. Are everybody on those committees, do they have a medical background, or is it just you just happen to be fortunate enough to have one yourself?
Well, as far as the health committee, we've got a great chairman, Richard Gottfried. He's been in the Assembly now for 40 years, and he's really, really well read on what he needs to be able to present to the committee. But unfortunately, most of the communication that we've been getting has been through the governor's executive orders, which most of the time are very confusing. we have a commitment to give the people of our district good, sound information, businesses, people in the healthcare professions and all that. And there's been so many mixed signals on these executive orders. As far as legislation that's been passed or even proposed at this point, again, everything is on hold. We did have a session a couple weeks ago that lasted 3 days. Unfortunately, those were just to address the law enforcement issues. We didn't talk about healthcare. We didn't talk about infrastructure. We didn't talk about the Medicaid crisis. But I've been using my knowledge of Medicaid and healthcare to be able to have some very frank conversations with Assemblyman Gottfried about where I think the direction of the committee should go. And it's worked, but again, everything right now is on hold. We have some very, very important issues I think we need to address, and I'm anxious to get back to Albany and start addressing those issues.
Are you talking at all to local hospitals or anything like that as part of this to find out what they're going through and see how you can help in that regard?
Yes, I have. And I'm on the higher ed committee. And also I have 14 component school districts in my assembly district. And I regularly communicate with those school superintendents. And I reach out to the respective people in the healthcare institutions, not only hospitals, but nursing homes, just to find out. And probably the biggest challenge that they have right now is communication. They're just not getting the right direction from Albany. And I know this is a unique circumstance, but we really need to give these people some information on how to be able to manage their organizations.
How do you think in the long term this is going to impact government itself? So you guys have been doing this Zoom kind of stuff. Does this give both a positive and a negative? A lot of places, we've talked to news reporters who have talked about how great it'll be to not have to go to a town of Brookfield meeting. They can watch it from Zoom when it's negative 25 degrees out and snowing. Do you feel like it can be a positive and a negative that comes out of this?
I think what it's going to be is a good backup. We're never going to be able to replace that social interaction that is so necessary for people to be able to communicate and to merge ideas. To be able to Zoom in like you and I are doing right now it's a great thing. You know, we're minimizing any risk of exposure to infection or anything like that. But I think as the virus becomes more manageable, as we start to realize the virus is something that the medical community is going to be very ready, willing, and able to handle, I think, and I'm hopeful that we are going to be able to get back to a somewhat normal circumstance where we can have more of this face-to-face dialogue. Human beings are social animals. They need to interact. And we can see by some of the evidence of the implications of this lockdown, not only on businesses, but on people's psychological welfare, what it's doing. Like, for instance, something that I have a special interest in is children with special needs. My wife and I had to deal with that for many years. And we are very concerned about what this is going to do with or for kids with special needs. These individuals need strong social communication and interaction. And for a teacher to be having a mask on, required to wear a mask in a special education classroom, in my opinion, it's just not going to work. So, I mean, we've got a lot of introspection to do on where we're going to be going next with this.
Yeah, I think the Post-Standard had an article maybe last weekend about young people that were in a home that were wondering why people weren't coming to visit them.
Yeah, and I've had parents reach out to me about that very problem. That they haven't. One woman called me from the city of Oneida last week, one of many, many calls that we get, and she was concerned because she hasn't seen her daughter in 2.5 months. And I can't even imagine what that's like for a parent.
And it cuts both ways. I have a grandmother in an assisted living facility, and we haven't seen her in, again, 2.5 months. And you call and get updates, but they haven't. I know a lot of places, I believe, either have reopened or are about to reopen maybe today. Today being
phase 4.
But those facilities, I don't think those facilities where you have very, very vulnerable populations are going to open, at least in the near term, which that's something that's going to have to be looked at. There's a lot of people that are definitely struggling. Go ahead. So one last question that we'll get to, do you feel like this is going to have a long-term impact down the road? Obviously budgetary, we all see this giant dark cloud over us. But do you see it impacting other things, other programs? Again, education, every college or every, actually one of the colleges, but the high school superintendents and teachers we've talked to have said, yeah, it's going to change things. Even if they all want to get back in the classroom, but there's going to be more interaction with utilizing web-based services and stuff like that. So what do you see kind of coming out of this, maybe in the medical and in the government, that long-term impacts that you think might happen?
Well, there's no doubt about it. There are going to be long-term impacts to this. This has changed people's style of interacting. It's changed people's mode of thinking. They're much more cautionary. I would imagine over time that will start to relax a little bit. We're starting to see a lot of non-compliance with the face masks. Starting to see people that are just saying, look, I'm not going to wear this thing in 80-degree weather. I don't care. We want to make sure that we have the freedoms that we're entitled to, but also that responsibility of making sure that you consider other people that might have higher risk factors. But as far as government, yes, it's going to change. I hope to get back to Albany face-to-face very, very soon, but we're not exactly sure. Education, now there's even talk that the Regents is not positive about schools returning to open sessions in September. And these kids have already been out of school now for months. So the teachers that I talk to, the superintendents that I talk to say that we've got astronomical problems once these kids come back to school because, I mean, kids are kids. If they haven't been around, I mean, it's hard just over a summertime to get kids to start kind of, being a little bit more disciplined. And now add 2.5 months to that, and you're going to see a situation that is going to be extremely challenging. And not to mention the fact that you mentioned that the budget, education could take up to a 20% cut. If that's the case, I've had school superintendents in my district say that they might have to consider merging or closing their school completely. They just simply can't deal with those kind of budget cuts. So we got some huge challenges in front of us. We have to remain consistent. As leaders, we have to give people direction. We have to make sure that they have some confidence that we can, along with them, figure out how we can get through this crisis, through this challenge.
John, I know you have lots going on, so I thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. I will probably reach out to you down the road. I know the superintendents have all said, we're going to talk in like August and see where you're at. And they've been very willing to do that. And I hope you are too.
Thank you.
So we will talk to you soon as we get more information, and stay safe. And we hope to talk to you soon.
Same to you, man. Thank you very much for the time.
All right. Bye now.
Take care.